toss to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
Welcome to Patriots Touchback Podcast.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome along to the Patriots Touchback Podcast. It's season 3, episode 36. We are continuing with our dissecting of the NFL draft positioning. Tonight, we have got the big men on deck. We have got the offensive line. We are doing tackle, guard, and center as well. Usually, our resident guru, Nick, would be here, but unfortunately, he is out with a little bit of an illness, so he is out for this game. I got Rob and Kieran, who are slightly questionable, but they are here. So thank you, guys. Make sure you smash the like button, the subscribe button, tell all your friends, follow us on social media platforms, and make sure you follow the podcast on Spotify and on Apple as well. Remember, guys, we are on the road to 100 subs. We want to get there before the NFL draft, so make sure that get us there. Hit that subscribe button, please. And also, we are at an event at the Hippodrome Casino next Thursday for the NFL draft itself. We
next
have
Thursday?
got next Thursday. Did I say next Thursday?
3 weeks
My apologies.
early.
1 month Thursday. 1 month Thursday. We'll be at the Hippodrome with a live NFL draft event. It's going to be absolutely quality. Unlike the other two who are questionable, I am out with injury, but guess what? I am still here. Kieran, Nick, Rob, how have you been?
Yeah, good, thank you. I thought when you said we had the big men on file, I thought you were talking about me and Kieran. I got excited for a second, but
am I questionable because I took a shot at Rashid Rice the other night, or
it's forgiven?
It is forgiven. It's forgiven. The only way you come off the charges is if he's actually found guilty. But if he's not, then that's really bad. I'll look on you. But
I'm only saying what other people are thinking.
Anyway, right, we're getting cracking on. The offensive line after the Super Bowl, which our offensive line got, let's just call a spade, shall we? Got absolutely decimated. We are in need of reinforcements, mostly at the guard position. Left guard is a prime example. Obviously, we are looking for a right tackle to not say take over from Morgan Moses, but back him up, learn under him for a full entire year, and let's see how he gets on. We've got a big lineup of players on our list here, and Nick has given us his list as well of offensive tackles. We're going to first start off with the main tackle on the board, who should be the first one coming off the board. Francis Morgoya, the offensive tackle out of the University of Miami, 3'29", 6'6". He ran a 5.3 40-yard dash for a big guy. That is actually really, really impressive, to be honest with you. Great height at 6'6", weight 329, good hands. He ran a good 14. His arm is 33 inches and a quarter. Kieran, we're expecting one of him or Spencer Farno to go off the board first. What's the chances? Is the Miami product going to be the first one off the board? Where are we looking at? Pick 7 or 8? Pick 7 or 8, maybe?
Yeah, I think his kind of range is probably from 3 to, I guess, 9. Because you look at the teams in that range, he would certainly fit the bill for most of them. I have him as the number 1 tackle in the class. I think, the draft kind of begins at number 2 because we're still up in the air about what the Jets are going to do. And obviously they're not going to go offensive tackle after what they've done with their investment there. So Arizona at 3 makes a lot of sense because they've put a lot of emphasis into rebuilding their offensive line. They definitely have a big hole at right tackle, and that would complete the kind of the formed lineup then, even though we don't know what they're doing with the QB situation. So I think Mawanoa would make a lot of sense for them at number 3. Equally, he could go to Tennessee at number 4, and they could kick one of their other tackles into guard, or they could even kick Mawanoa inside to guard because some people believe that he would be able to do that. I certainly think that he's more than capable of hanging at tackle. So there's a lot of variance for him, but I think he's got NFL size and length. He's highly athletic. He's powerful. He's got a rock solid anchor. He's got heavy hands. He's really good in space and getting to the second level. He could, I think he's probably a pass blocker than he is than a run blocker. But yeah, for me, he's that tick above Spencer Fano, and I don't think it would be incorrect for him to go as high as number 3 overall. But I genuinely don't know where some of these teams are going to go.
Built like a refrigerator with his legs. He's got his 315-pound frame, carries elite muscle density that allows him to absorb contact. His anchor is ridiculous. Ball rushers hit a brick wall when they engage his chest plate. So good luck at the NFL. He needs to be very prepared at the NFL level because he has got some good pass rushers. If he does go to the Cardinals, he's got some good pass rushers in the NFC West. Hands arrive with bad intentions. Movement skills defy his size. He clocked at nearly 20 mile an hour on the 1.72 second 10-yard split, which is he reached the second level with surprising burst, maintains body control. Run blocking, he carries a mean streak which shows up play after play. He double teams become destruction projects when he gets involved. Balance and body control allow him to recover from compromised positions, and he's also got technical growth between seasons, which shows coaching absorption, which means he's reduced sacks. He allowed from 5 to 1 between freshman and sophomore years, while cutting penalties nearly in half. Rob, he sounds like the perfect tackle. No wonder he's the number 1 prospect.
Totally agree. In terms of him being the number 1 player at the position in this year's draft class, really like what I've seen from him on film. You know, it's been mentioned already about the guy's just pure strength. Just seems like he's got the ability to compete at the NFL level from day one. Seems like a really sort of violent hitter at the point of contact with defenders. You know, it's strong arms, strong anchor, all that kind of stuff, able to hold his own. Can get to the second level enough in the run game. So it doesn't appear to me like there's any like glaring holes in his game. And so, you know, it's been mentioned he could go as high as 3. It wouldn't surprise me. For Arizona in particular, that would create a really strong tackle partnership between Paris Johnson on the left side if you put this guy over at right tackle as well. I know sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to turn down the sexy skill position players that are available in the draft that high up, whether it's Jeremiah Love or Carnell Tate, but this guy seems like the kind of player that you could take at as high as 3 overall and plug him into your starting lineup and be pretty confident that he's going to be there for 5-10 years, for example. So he's the number 1 guy for me.
Yeah, the second category is weaknesses. Lateral quickness capped out at good rather than elite. Mirror ability against sophisticated counter moves remains a work in progress for him. Hand placement wanders outside the frame at times. Pad level creeps up during long drives, especially when fatigue sets in. And processing complex blitz packages still requires refinement. Late loopers and delayed rushes occasionally catch him flat-footed before recognition kicks in. He is a toadsetter who brings a physical mentality that offensive line coaches absolutely dream of. Yeah, I think the highest he could go is 3 to Arizona. I'm not sure who else would be sitting on. Well, Cincy could do with some more offensive line help because they need to protect their asset.
I think they're going all in on defense. If you look at that, if you look at that top 10, obviously Arizona makes a ton of sense. Cleveland makes a ton of sense at number 6 as well, although you'd probably be relying on him to flip over to the left, which I'm never a massive fan of, to be honest. I know we've seen it translate a couple of times in the past, you know, Penei Sewell being one of them who flipped at sides. But I don't necessarily like that for a rookie starting from day one. I think Washington are probably out because they drafted Connolly last year and they have Laramie Tunsil. I think Kansas City's a really interesting one because they released Jawan Taylor. They have a big need at right tackle. I would expect KC to try and address the offensive line position either with their 9th overall pick or with their 29th overall pick they've got now from the Rams. One of those positions is going to be taken, going to be an O-lineman. I liked Josh Simmons coming out last year. I think he could be a pretty good left tackle, but they need to get someone on the right to replace Jawan Taylor. It's probably more likely that Farno's that guy for them than Mawanoa. But I feel like, Kansas City do luck into some good picks sometimes. And it'd be a very Chiefs thing if Maui Noah was to kind of fall down the board and end up going to Kansas City. And I think they'd have a really nice young tackle tandem. That's what I was looking for. There's a bit of variation. If he gets past Cleveland, there's a chance for that. I don't think the Saints are going tackle. So it's Arizona, KC, and then if no tackles, Cleveland as well. If no tackles are off the board in the top 10, then there's obviously a lot of variance there where they could end up, and teams will start to potentially trade up. But I don't think Mawanoa gets outside the top 10.
Moving on to the next one, Spencer Fanu, out of Utah, 6'6", 311 pounds. That's a bit on the light side for a tackle. That is 40 time, 4.91 seconds. He ran a 10-yard at 1.72, which is insanely quick. Ball jump at 111. The shuttle was 4.67, which is pretty decent. But his 40 was good. His vertical, his free cone drill was 7.34. That is unbelievable for a guy of his size and his height and his magnitude. He does remind me a little bit along the lines of Christian Darrisaw to a certain degree. He's only a junior as well, so he's clearly obviously had one or two good seasons, like 2 good seasons, and now he's gone straight into the NFL level. Rob, what do you think of Spencer Fanu to start before I carry on with his strengths and weaknesses?
Sure, yeah, I like him. I think that he's got a lot to his game. I think he's athletic for his size. We mentioned about his 3-cone drill there, and it seems to show up on film in the run game. He can get out, he can pull. So for those sort of more exotic running schemes, I think that he can certainly live up to what's needed in those sort of schemes. The main sort of, I don't want to say weakness, but difference that I noticed between him and Maui Noah is that he just doesn't seem as strong or sturdy in his stance. That's the thing that sort of jumped out to me in pass protection. I think Maui Noah is a real sort of absolute wall over there, and Fano just seems to be a little bit more. Just doesn't quite have that same sort of stability. So I think he's a really valuable player. I've got him as number 2 on my list, but I think that, like I say, there's a little bit of a difference between the number 1 prospect to that position and then the other guys. So I like Fano. 0 sacks given up in 2025. To be fair, a lot of these tackles have got kind of gaudy numbers when it comes to sacks allowed in the last couple of years at college. Maui Noah 1 sack in 2025 he gave up. Fano 0, 3 sacks in his entire college career. Spencer Fano gave up. It's just crazy sort of numbers if that sort of thing translates to the NFL level. I really like him. He obviously played through a little bit of a shoulder injury in 2025. So there's that as a slight sort of concern, but I don't think it's anything major. So I think that he's going to be there's going to be a team that takes him, fairly high in the first round that are going to be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, moves like a tight end trapped in the tackle's body. I think one of the scouts reported him as. That shows an exceptional lateral agility and body control when climbing to the second level. And the combine that confirmed what the tape already showed. He has his 3-cone drill topped every offensive lineman tested, and his 40 was second fast at the position, and it translates directly to the reach blocks and pull assignments where he dominates. Flies out of his stance with rare explosiveness, possesses outstanding balance and recovery skills, allow him to escape compromising positions. Locks down edge speed with redefined kickside mechanics and efficient footwork. Shows strong hands and a firm center of gravity when once latched. Plays a visible intensity and brings legitimate nastiness on every snap. And he communicates like a 5th-year senior at the line, making rapid pre-snap adjustments and coordinating protection schemes with a level of processing speed that jumps off the tape. Kieran, we're looking at this guy. I think he could potentially go ahead of more. I'm going to butcher the guy. I'm just going to say the tackle out of Miami, okay? Because I'm not going to butcher the name. there's a chance Fanu could actually go above him here. The way the strengths on what I'm reading here. The only thing that does concern me is his size. For 311 pounds, it's a little bit on the light side for a tackle.
Yeah, he has a lean frame and a lean build, and he is going to need to get stronger. You guys have kind of hit the nail on the head with everything you've said so far in terms of the evaluation, with him being incredibly athletic and explosive out the stance, really good in space. But yeah, it's just kind of that build and that power that really limits him. And it's a thing where, like, he might be scheme specific as well. I feel like Mawanoa is a bit more of a plug and play. He's a bit more scheme averse in the sense that you could probably plug him into most teams and he'd be good. But Fano, to me, maybe a bit more of an outside zone scheme where you can get out and pull, where you can get him out in space and get him to attack at the second level, and you're not necessarily leaving him on an island one-on-one and trying to run power. Certainly wouldn't work for him. One thing that he can do is just overset and open the gate inside a little bit, which is going to have to be cleaned up. But I think, again, he's probably going to go sort of, the back end of the top 10, maybe early teens, depending on, the need there. There's stuff to work with, but he's probably going to need to get in the gym a little bit and just get a bit more stronger if he's going to hang up at tackle. I mean, he's got a lot of versatility as well. So, he might switch over to the left depending on where he gets drafted. He might kick inside, which is obviously, gives him a little bit of more of a string to his bow if he's going to be versatile. But for me, he's just that step below Mawanoa. I wouldn't be totally surprised if he went ahead of Mawanoa, but for me, I think it's quite clear that they are separate.
Yeah, so a few of his weaknesses, obviously, we spoke about already. His arms, they checked in at over 32 inches at the combine, which is well below the traditional tackle threshold. He carries a lean build for his chest, waist and thighs. That creates concerns about generating consistent movement against NFL caliber interior defensive and heavy-handed ends. Hand placement occasionally drifts outside the frame against elite speed rushers. Pad level rides too high on drive blocks. Relies heavily on flash technique and pass protection. And opens his outside half too quickly against speed rushers, which invites inside moves to create unnecessary correction angles that compromise his anchor point. That's mostly due to his size. This is going to be one of the downsides of him. He's a starting caliber offensive lineman with genuine top of the draft upside who should step into a lineup and contribute immediately. Combine performance has only reinforced that for me. He's either going to become a very good starter or perennial all-pro. Either way, the player who lines up next to him on Sundays can get one of the nastiest, most technical, refined blockers in this draft. So further down the board, then, who have they got so far? Who is more likely to take a tackle further down the board? If you're saying Arizona will take the product out of Miami, where does Fanu go?
Again, like we mentioned Cleveland. The three teams in the top 10 as Arizona, Cleveland, and Kansas City. I think they're the prime candidates in that sort of area. If he gets outside of that range, I think the Rams potentially in consideration at number 13, seeing as that Rob Havenstein just retired.
Yes, that's a good call.
I think that could be an option. And then you're looking at teams that kind of in the back end of the teams that could move up. Like the Lions obviously now have a need at left tackle as well. So, could Penei Sewell go back over to his college position if they draft a right tackle? They're certainly going to be in the market. So that's the kind of area I see potentially being for these tackles.
Joe Flacco has just signed a 1-year deal with the Bengals. There we go. So not breaking news. But anyway.
That's the breaking news you wanted on a Tuesday night.
I know. Right. Let's move on to. This is probably my favorite tackle, even though we both had a not a bit of a Barney, but we had a little bit of a discussion in the green room before we went live. Of what you said here, we don't know where to put this guy. Well, he's 352 pounds. He's 6'7". His 10-yard split was 1.84. His broad jump was 109. His vertical 32.5 was actually very good, by the way. His 40 was a 5.21, which is decent. Hands and arm a little bit on the short side, 33 inches and 3/8. The guy reminds me of a couple of things. He does remind me of Amarius Mims and J.C. Latham, I'll probably say, out of Alabama as well. But this guy is just a thick tree trunk. Immovable, absolutely immovable. So, how come he's fallen this far down the board?
I think so. Caden Proctor. I don't think we actually mentioned the name. For Caden Proctor from Alabama, obviously a left tackle. Which there's not a lot of high-end left tackles in this class in particular. A lot of the guys are right-sided. I think with him is that like he's certainly got certain traits and measurables that you like. Like, you know, he's highly athletic, he's explosive. Like you said, he's pure power, rock solid anchor, can deal with ball rushes one-on-one, strong in the run game because he's just a behemoth of a man. The only thing with him is he's probably way too heavy to play offensive tackle. You know, there were some reports saying that he showed up to training camp last year at 380 pounds, which is like insane. Like you're not playing tackle at that.
That's nose tackle. That's nose tackle size.
Yeah, not even that. I mean, some nose tackles are like 330. Like, you know, that's so it's incredibly heavy, which obviously he lacks. You know, help. His lateral agility is affected as a result of it. He can get beaten inside and by speed because he isn't able to, you know, to slide over and move sideways and laterally as quickly. But then you might say, okay, well, maybe he's a better fit for guard then because he's not as nimble. But he's too tall to play guard at 6'7". Like traditionally, guards are shorter than offensive tackles. They're kind of shorter, compact, bigger, stronger because primarily they're dealing against defensive tackles who are heavier, and their primary focus is to obviously open up the run game up the middle. But I don't know whether Proctor can play guard at that height. So he's such a polarizing prospect in the sense that I genuinely do not know what you do with him. You can try him at guard if he isn't going to drop the weight, but genuinely, I think if you see him as a left tackle prospect, he's probably going to need to lose about 30 pounds minimum to have a chance to hang at tackle in the NFL. But then is that going to compromise his power and his strength and his anchor? Like, I genuinely don't know. He's such a difficult evaluation. Like he moves well for his size, but like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a real element of risk with him. He's definitely in that boom or bust category, I think.
He does kind of remind me of Gotowski out of The Longest Yard. I bet he's a soft teddy bear. The minute you piss him off, I think it's a long night. It's a long day. Built like a small builder of legitimate rare size at 366 pounds. His anchor's absolutely elite, possibly the best trait of any tackle in this draft class. Generates violent pop on initial contact. He dominates in gap and power run scheme where he can fire downhill and displace defensive linemen 3 to 5 yards off the ball. Possesses 35-inch arms that allow him to engage defenders. Shows real nastiness and finisher mentality on film. So he's playing through the whistle with clear intent to bury defenders into the turf and break their will over 4 quarters. I love that description part there. That's brilliant. But this is the best one. Made the 2025 Feldman Freaks list. He wrote he did. No, let me listen. He wrote the biggest by far of Alabama's 3 O-line freaks. The 6'7", 366-pound Proctor's body has 274 pounds of lean muscle mass with 26% body fat. His strength numbers are awesome this summer. He squatted 815 pounds, benched 535, and power clean 405. Honestly, I was even more blown away when I found out he vertically jumped 32 inches and broad jumped 9'3". Have I mentioned he's 366 pounds yet? I'm not sure. That's 32-inch vertical is as much or more than 5 of the wideouts who are this year's combine. It's the same as Colorado's LeJontay Wester, and he weighed 203 pounds less.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And the
366 pounds. So what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I mean, like the measurables are so insane, and it's so visible on film. Like one of the first words that I wrote down next to him when I was watching this film is "beast." Like this guy is just an absolute. He's just an absolute.
Don't like Blastoise.
He's a real. Like human beings, human beings, like it's rare that you find human beings that size and that weight. But when you do find them, they certainly shouldn't be able to move at the speed that this guy can, and it just jumps off the film for me. You know, he gets to the second level, and when he's in the run game, he gets that big behind in between the defender and the ball carrier, and you know, in order to create lanes. Like he's got a real skill at that. Kieran's right that there's not a whole lot of precedent for, you know, players of that height and that weight, you know, kind of being successful. But I'll throw a name out there that we've not mentioned, and as Patriots fans, it's probably quite appropriate. And it's Trent Brown, who came in at 6'8", 380 pounds, you know, which is like maybe the biggest NFL player ever, I'm guessing. And so if there is somebody that, you know, I would kind of, you know, look to for a little bit of precedent that this guy can make the jump to the next level, then it would be him. I suppose it's a little bit risky, as it's been mentioned by Kieran, to bet on sort of one instance of success. But like, I just love watching this guy's film. So I've got him at number 3.
So he does have some weaknesses. Lateral redirect against counter moves remains his most exploitable weakness. Pad level rises throughout games, especially when fatigued. His zone blocking in spaces looks inconsistent on tape. Hand placement can drift wide under duress against elite speed. And conditioning at his massive size raises legitimate questions about forecourt effectiveness in up-tempo offensive systems. Late game dip performance showed up in several 2025 contests.
I think like it's an interesting point that Rob makes about Trent Brown. The difference is Trent Brown was drafted in the 7th round.
Very true.
So, yes. If you're considering this guy as a potential your new left tackle in the first round, there's a significant chance of more of a risk drafted in there. I mean, I've always liked, you know, Carl last year, you know, I was really, really high on Ariante Ursary, who ended up going to the Texans, having a nice rookie season. And I've always liked those kind of big wardrobe offensive linemen. But you can be a big wardrobe, but also not be, you know, a walk-in wardrobe, which is what the size that Caden Proctor is. I think there's certainly some stuff to like about him, but he's going to need to shed weight. You know, so we'll see. I think he's probably like, he might go at the back end of the first round. I kind of see him going like second round, because I feel like there's just such an element of risk there that I don't think every team will be too keen on that. And like I said, I don't know how he's going to be viewed, whether that's as a tackle or a guard.
If we were adamant of kicking Will Campbell inside to guard, which I don't think was going to be the case anyway, but in case we did, it would be like, right, okay, if this guy falls to us at 31, I think we're going to be taking that left tackle. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we have more prizing needs on our hands, like wide receiver, tight end.
I would quite. I mean, before they signed Wyatt Teller a few days ago, I would have quite liked the idea of him going to Houston and playing next to Ursary at left guard, because that would have just been like two enormous men next to each other. Good luck getting through them two.
No, because CJ Young has got another excuse then, hasn't he? CJ Stroud, rather, not CJ Young. CJ Young's a hockey player. Anyway, right. Let's move on to. Let's have a look. Who have we got next on our board? Tell you what, let's make a quick diversion. Let's go to the guard, because this guy has been doing the rounds for a number of months now. The left guard out of Penn State, Alijah Vera-Tucker. Jesus Christ, 6'4", 320. Vertical jump of 31.5. Weight 320, which is a decent size. Height 6'4". Hands 10.5 inch hands, which is very good. And he ran a 5.35 in the 40, which is okay, I think. Reminds me a little bit of the likes of like Tyler Booker and Marquise Hayes to a certain degree. All I've been seeing regarding of tape is him sending defensive tackles to the the shadow realm. Every single play I've seen a videotape of him, he's just he is the best guard going, and he doesn't get fazed by it. Kez.
Yeah, he's like the most kind of pro-ready, like plug and play guard in the class. He's just polished. He's powerful. He's a good pass protector. You can leave him one-on-one and he'll handle himself. He's got the size and the length. He's aggressive. Really, really good hands. He's just like not so great, like kind of moving laterally in space. Like speed rushers can cause him a couple of problems, but like I think overall he's great. Best guard in the class. Feels to me now that they've got their picks back in a very Draft Day the movie kind of way with the Ravens, that he's going to end up going to Baltimore at number 14. That was kind of the chalkiest mock landing spot for him before the Crosby trade, and then obviously now they got their picks back. It would seem to me like Oane would probably fit in quite nicely there at number 14. They need to rebuild that offensive line, and that would be a really solid pick, albeit not a very sexy one when you're taking a guard at 14 overall. But yeah, he's really good.
So his strengths there, pass protection is his calling card. It translates immediately to Sundays. 0 sacks, 0 hits, and only 4 hurries across 613 snaps in 2025. That tells you everything about his ability to keep the quarterbacks clean. It sets the anchors like he's got roots growing into the turf. That's great description there. His grip strength borders on unfair. Once those hands latching onto a defender's chest plate, the rep is over because nobody's ripping free from that vice, no matter how many counter moves you try. He reads stunts in games at an advanced level. Uses shoe and short sets effectively to establish inside-out leverage, hardening his inside shoulder and forcing rushers to work predictable pass, playing to his power. Built like a fortress at 330 pounds with dense mass through his limbs and torso. Creates genuine displacement on base blocks and double teams, and remarkably clean with the flags despite his physical size, drawing just 3 penalties across 16 starts in 2024, while maintaining that discipline through his All-American 2025 campaign. Best guard in the class, Rob?
I would love to be able to give you my opinion. The only thing that I owe anybody listening or watching this podcast or show is honesty. And in the interest of honesty, I haven't watched any film of any interior offensive lineman. The Patriots don't need one. We don't want one. And so therefore, I don't really care. So I am going to lean on the expertise of my fellow compatriots, Carl, Kieran, Nick when he's back, and I'll let you guys give your opinions on it. That's all from me.
This was meant to be Nick's show, by the way, but
well,
it is what it is. Is there anything on that weakness page, Kieran, that stands out, which could be a little bit awkward?
Not really. There's very. It's just kind of that lateral quickness and the agility when it comes to like matching up against speed rushers. But I think that's something that's by the by. Like guards aren't perfect, right? If they are all excellent players, they will be tackles. So I don't see any cause for concern. I think he'll be a multi-year starter. I think he'll be solid. Do I see him as like a future All-Pro? I don't know. It's always hard to say when it comes to guards, but I certainly think he'll be, more than comfortable to play many years in the NFL.
Okay. Yeah, I think Saints. Where are the Saints picking? Are they? They need. Well, they already have their tackle in Caleb Banks, haven't they? So they need a guard, won't they?
No, they've just paid David Edwards like $20 million a year, so that isn't going to happen. They're not in the offensive line, in the offensive line conversation. Their line's pretty set now. If you think with with Banks, with Edwards, Ruiz, McCoy, and then Talisi Fuaga. They're in a really good spot actually with their O-line, so they're not going to be in there. I mean, I think it's probably Ravens at 14, and then anywhere back from there. Obviously, guards don't carry a great deal of positional value traditionally, but he's kind of anywhere from Ravens at 14, probably all the way through into the 20s, depending on how a team views the need.
Okay. Back onto the board again. We're going back to tackle, and we're going to take the big guy out of Georgia, Monroe Freeland, 6'7", 315. Has a little bit of a Roger Rosengarten feel to him, from what I've gathered on his tape. Let's have a look at his measurables. 6'7". His hands 10 3/4, which is decent. He got good arm length. His 10-yard shuttle was 1.71, or 10-yard split rather. His 40 time was 4.93. That is very, very good for a tackle. Vertical 33.5, ball jump 115, all in the blue. Very, very good tackle indeed. He's positioned as a blindside blocker, so that's a good start so far. He's been very, very good for Georgia over his time. What do you make of Freeland? Obviously, I think he's going to fall. He's going to be around in the back end of round 1. I expect him to be, but
that's probably where he should go. However, there has been a lot of traction for Cleveland at number 6 overall, which I think is way too high.
Wow.
Yeah, remember, this is Cleveland after all. They do overshoot their load.
Once again, the reason why that is because there aren't a great deal of left tackles in this class. So Freeling is a left tackle. He has the size, the length, the athleticism. He's incredibly toolsy. Like, he's a player that you are banking on can develop into something really, really good. But as of right now, he's still a bit of a project. It would worry me if he were to go to Cleveland at number 6, or if he were to go to Detroit at number 17 and start at left tackle straight away, because I feel like he's still got a way to go. You know, he still needs to get stronger. He's still developing as a run blocker. Especially, I think he might struggle a little bit against NFL power until he gets a bit stronger. And he's only played 16 games in college. That if he goes to Cleveland at number 6 overall, they're expecting him to come in at left tackle straight away and be good straight away. They've put a lot of investment into that offensive line. I feel like they'd be hanging him out to dry a little bit. So you're right, Carl. Like, back end of the first round, as a project, I think is where he should be. But I think when it's all said and done, some team's going to reach on him because of the traits and the tools and the fact that he's a highly athletic young left tackle, and they'll be banking on the upside and the development. But for me, just not quite ready yet to play significant snaps from the get-go.
Yeah, rare athlete for the position. His combine numbers confirm that. Path protection was strong in 2025, allowing minimal pressure across 747 snaps against SEC edge talent. Has a basketball background. Shows up in his balance, spatial awareness, and ability to redirect through contact. Quick first step off the snap gives him an advantage reaching landmarks on zone concepts and getting to the linebackers. Active hands with quick punch resets. Finishes with intent when he locks onto a defender and gets his feet moving downhill. Showed tangible week-to-week growth throughout 2025 while managing an ankle injury and full-time starter duties. And at 6'7" with a 34-inch arms, gives him a wide strike zone that edge rushers have to work around. Rob, the Freeling, I've had him in a couple of my mock drafts as well. This was before the wide receiver room was starting to get a little bit bare at times. Could he go as high as 6 to Cleveland, or does it look a little bit like, no, I think he will still fall in around the 20s or slightly higher?
Yeah, I think 6 would be extremely high. Like Kieran said, limited in terms of left tackles, and there's always sort of extra value on being able to find one of those. So it wouldn't shock me if a team reaches for him. I think middle of the first round, sort of mid-teens to mid-20s is probably where I would expect him to go. Maybe somewhere like Detroit, bang in the middle of the first round. He's probably as high as I would guess that he would go. I like him. Like, you watch the film and you can kind of see all the tools that are going to be there. He's a good athlete, gets out in space, drives people back, as well. But it's just what Kieran mentioned, the other three names that we've mentioned at the tackle position, Muinoa, Fano and Proctor have all played at least 37 games in college. And Monroe Freeland's at 16, 17, it's just the lack of experience. And when you factor in as well, a little bit of an injury concern. So 2024, he had shoulder surgery. And in 2025, he had a high ankle sprain as well. It just leaves me with a couple of question marks, which means that he can't quite be in that top three for me. I think that he's got the potential to be a good player, but there's enough there to give me pause with him in terms of, mid to high first round.
Yeah, his run blocking lags partly behind his pass protection, especially in gap schemes. He gets tall through his hips too often, loses power at the point of attack against stout defenders. He does need to add another 10 to 15 pounds of functional weight to anchor consistently in the NFL level. Tendency to lunge and bend at the waist costs him his length advantage and creates missed assignments, and limited starting experience leaves real questions about handling a full NFL workload from the jump. So it is a project developmental player by what we looks of it, but he is a left tackle. So you know what? It generally would not surprise me at all if the 49ers took him.
I was just about to say that it would be the perfect prospect to sit behind Trent Williams for a year and groom to be the new left tackle. That would make a ton of sense. I mean, whereas San Francisco, like in the mid-20s, aren't they? So, like, I'm not sure he gets there, but if he did, that would make a lot of sense.
High 20s, wasn't it? Because they got to the divisional round, didn't they?
Yeah. What are they, like 20? What, 27?
27.
No.
Yeah, 27.
Oh, they were 27. Okay, so that's that's where he could fall. That's where he could be there. But I wonder if the 49ers got their eyes set on a certain receiver, which I hope not. But anyway, good projection there from Monroe Freeland. We'll do one more tackle and then we'll start off with some fun ones. So Caleb Lemieux out of Utah, 6'6", 313. He was very, very high. He was actually quite high on Nick's draft board, if I'm not mistaken. 313 and weights a little bit on the light side. His 10-yard split was 1.74, so very good. His 40 vertical abroad are all in the 100% mark, so that's very, very good. Hands a little bit short. Height 6'6". Reminds me again. I'm looking at someone like Troy Fatanu or Abraham Lucas, maybe. On the personal level, 205C was where Lemieux separated himself from the pack. He cleaned up his pass protection to the tune of 0 sacks allowed, 8 pressures on 357 pass blocking sacks, pushing his PFF pass blocking grade up to 82.1, and earned him first team All Big 12 recognition and a spot on both the Outland Trophy and Polynesian College Football Player of the Year watch lists. So Utah's offensive line collectively earned Big 12 Offensive Line of the Week honors 4 times and landed on the Joe Moore Award mid-season honor roll. Lemieux was the anchor of a unit that put up 587 total yards against Colorado, including 422 on the ground, 532 at West Virginia, and 518 against Cal Poly. Cal Poly?
Mm-hmm.
Is that short for California? I'm not quite sure.
No, Cal Poly is the school that Elijah Ponder came out of. It's the smaller school.
Oh, okay, fair enough then. What do you make of Caleb Lemieux, Kez?
Not for me.
Nope. Why?
No.
What's the?
I think he's lean. He lacks overall power. I think he's highly athletic. I think he's like more of a finesse tackle. He really does lack in the run game. He moves very well. He's very comfortable against speed rushers, and he's comfortable in space and getting to the second level. I would just worry about him again. Like I said, in the run game, worried about the frame a little bit. I think ball rushers will eat him alive. His hands aren't particularly great. And I do wonder whether he might be one of those potential guard conversions as well. I've got a second round grade on him. He's just not for me. Obviously, he plays left tackle as well, so it's not really in our what's the word I'm looking for? Not obviously, we're looking for someone to play on the right side, ideally. So I don't think he's a fit for us. But yeah. If he can get stronger and work on a few things, he might be all right. But I don't have him. I mean, I'm just looking at my top 5 now and trying to work out who I've left off. He's probably like my 7th or 8th tackle at best.
Core power a glaring issue? Yeah.
He just gets he lacks the body mass in his frame to move guys, and he really struggles against power. Like I said, if you come up against those real powerful edge rushers in the NFL that are going to ball rush you, I think that he's going to have a lot of problems with that. Against those smaller, twitchier, fast guys, he's going to be fine. Like the guys like Nick Bonito, you might look really good against, but against Daniil Hunters and stuff like that, he's going to really struggle. So, I think he's got a lot of development, but he's not a first round pick.
Okay, Rob, what about you?
Similar sort of assessment, really. To be fair, I think quick footwork, maneuvers his body well for his size. But it's the same thing in terms of like the weakness I've got written down here. Doesn't look totally stable in pass protection. Could be undone by NFL power. It's the power. I think that is the glaring sort of hole in his game. I mean, we talked about like a top 5 list in the green room, and I had him as my number 5. But as I flick through my list, I've got more positive stuff written down about a couple of other people. Blake Miller is there as potentially like a guy who plays on the right hand side, who I think would maybe be a better fit for us. I think Kieran, you're quite high on Blake as well.
Yeah, Blake Miller is my number 3 tackle.
Right, wow.
I've got him just above Freeling. That is purely based on the fact that I feel like out of all the tackles behind Mawinoa and Fano, that he's probably the most plug and play out of all of them. He's someone that's played over 50 collegiate games. Yeah. He's got the size, the length. He's tough. He's durable. He's strong. He's a decent athlete. And I feel like that if you put Blake Miller in, he stands more of a chance of holding up early on than the likes of Freeling, Lomu, Inacho. Some of them might have higher ceilings, but I think the floor is significantly higher with Blake Miller. And I agree with you, Rob, in terms of fit. Blake Miller's kind of a great one for us because we're looking for a right tackle. He certainly would fit what Mike Vrabel wants and what Doug Marrone wants. Obviously, he wouldn't play straight away with Morgan Moses. And he, like I said, he's someone that I do believe could come in and play straight away. But I feel like he would be a solid NFL tackle. Maybe not an overly flashy or elite one. Is he going to be a perennial Pro Bowler? I don't know. But I think he can be a dependable NFL starter that can get, through many, many years. I mean, Carl, last year when we were talking about Will Campbell, we said if he can be Jake Matthews for 10 years, we'd be perfectly fine with that. And I feel like that's kind of similar with Blake Miller.
Yeah, I really like him. He's the thing that I noticed most about him, or that kind of jumped out to me, is that he seemed to finish a lot of plays seemed to finish with him laying on the floor on top of a defender, like more so than anybody else that I noticed. And it just jumped out to me like this guy loves to hit people and he loves to finish plays. So I think like his attitude, his motor is going to be awesome. I think that whoever takes him is getting a really good player. It's a little bit of obviously it's great that we've got Morgan Moses there, but I wonder about where tackle's going to be in terms of our needs, because immediately at the moment it seems like wide receiver and edge are both clearly bigger needs than tackle, because you've got somebody who can play and who's played well at right tackle for us. Now, I suppose it depends. I'm going to mention this guy's name again. Sorry, AJ Brown, right? The sort of elephant in the room. If you're relying on the AJ Brown deal coming in later in the summer, then all of a sudden you don't need to take a KC Conception at the end of the first round. So you could address either, edge and tackle in the first and second, if you know that, or if you quote unquote know that you're getting AJ Brown later on in the year. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where we go at that at 31 overall. That'll tell us a lot about the likelihood of AJ Brown coming later in the year. But I part of me wants to believe that that's the case, because I would love for us to be able to get someone like Blake Miller and have the sort of capacity to be able to do that. But if you can't rely on that trade happening later on in the year, then I'm not sure that we could spend bottom of the first round pick on someone who's not going to contribute in the upcoming season.
Yeah, and I'm definitely an advocate of finding an understudy and a potential future right tackle to Moses, and Nick's very much thinking the same as well. Thinking about, you go for the premium position and you can find your right tackle, which we do need to look to the future with that. But that there is an argument to be had, Rob, and with what you just said, that you could essentially bypass it for a year. If Morgan Moses holds up this year, you haven't got to immediately address that position. You're just looking for depth. So if you can re-sign Thayer Munford, and of course we've just signed James Hudson as well, who's going to be like a backup swing tackle. If you can almost get through this coming season with Morgan Moses, but you use your primary picks this year to get a receiver and to get an edge rusher, you can go all in on a right tackle in the first round next year if you want to. So I think that there is definitely a debate to be had. You could quite easily go and draft a guy that you think might be the heir apparent to Moses, or you could take the risk that Moses is going to stay healthy the whole year and just go all in next year and go, right, okay, well, let's say, for example, this year we've drafted an edge at number 31. We've gone Chris Brazzell, I don't know, in round 2 or whatever. We've got our receiver and our edge rusher. And then next year in the first round, wherever we're picking, we're going to take the best right tackle available, and they're going to be the guys to start. That definitely could be the route. It still doesn't stop us from taking a tackle at some point in the draft, but I'm kind of more calling on the idea, because I feel like if you're drafting a tackle at 31 and they're not going to play, you're not really getting much of a return on your first round investment straight away. It's more of a long-term play. So yeah, I probably would go elsewhere, but that's not to say that Blake Miller wouldn't be a fantastic pick. And I feel the same way about Ian Atchor as well. He's definitely got a lot more to development. He's someone who would be probably more of a better understudy to Morgan Moses, because he's got a lot of developing to do and he's not ready to start yet. But I think he has a significantly higher ceiling than Blake Miller does. If he, as a very inexperienced raw player with all the physical measurables you could possibly ask for, if he develops how you think he can, Ian Atchor could be a stud. But as of right now, if you're a team looking for someone to come in and play right tackle straight away, I think Blake Miller's the one you want.
So we'll move into Ian Atchor, and you are right. He is a developmental piece. But had a very good 10-yard split on 173. His 40 was 4.9, which is pretty decent. Broad jump 115, height 6'6", 321. Bench, he actually was benched 25, so that was 55%. So very good from him. Good vertical as well, 30.5. However, there was a big glaring weakness: his hand size, 9 inches. Just for clarification reasons, my hands are 8 inches.
I don't know how that helps us, but
no comment.
But again, another developmental player. Very good.
It's interesting. I liked his film, and it's interesting. Some of the things that you just mentioned there. It's nice when sort of some of the notes that I've made watching film match up with some of the factual information that I then find out, like just there, Carl, in regards to hand size. I've got written down here, doesn't lock hands onto defenders. It certainly is effectively as some of the other guys that we've mentioned. So that sort of explains it. He looks raw, doesn't particularly flash, but he's got quick feet and he's a violent hitter, when he engages with defenders. So I don't think he sort of moves people with the same ferocity as some of the names that we've mentioned, like Blake Miller, for example, recently, or the guys at the top of the first round. But, there's a couple of guys that, would be available at 31, where if you were to trade down, for example, that might still be available a little bit into the second round that could be, interesting projects to fill that role in the future. And as it's been mentioned, I like the idea of looking at adding somebody, in that tackle spot in this year's draft. There's a few names down the list in the sort of third, fourth round that I quite like, that I think it would be worth making that sort of investment in, and having, a year to sit under Morgan Moses, his tutelage and kind of ease that transition into the NFL. We spoke about a couple of guys who we think it would be really difficult to transition immediately from the college level into the NFL. That jump from going up against college pass rush to full-grown men NFL pass rush. Well, if you have an opportunity for a guy to sit for a year and, kind of ease that, then that's, a sort of great scenario. It's just that you don't necessarily want to be spending a premium draft pick on someone who's going to do that.
Okay. We're going to move on to a player of mine. I think a player we actually all like, not due to his size and his ability, but due to this fantastic mustache and haircut that he has. Gennings Dunker, the guard out of Iowa. Although he's projected here to be a right tackle, we're pretty sure he's going to be kicking inside the guard anyway. His shot was 4.63, which is pretty decent. His 40 was 5.18, which is good. His 10-yard split was 1.83, a little bit on the slow side. He's 6'5", he's 319. Reminds me a little bit from reminds a little bit of Logan Brown of his playing style. Scout report says that he generates violent movement at the point of attack. Once his hands land clean, defenders are locked in place. Plays with a nasty disposition that shows up every snap. Finishes blocks with bad intentions and keeps grinding well after the whistle. Anchor is sturdy enough to absorb ball rushes without giving up ground. Rarely gets walked back into the quarterback slap on power moves. Creates serious knockback on combination blocks. Footwork, timing is refined on angle blocks. Freakish weight room numbers translate to the field. There's legitimate pound for pound power advantage against more interior defenders. He was a 4-year star of 38 career starts, and Joe Moore Award pedigree brings the kind of experience and leadership that translates immediately to NFL locker rooms. This guy has done the rounds. He's very good for what we've seen on tape so far. But all of that completely falls short of the wayside due to, his looks. With the mullet. And the mustache.
Beautiful. It's mullet and mustache as well.
It is amazing. It is amazing.
The definition of cult hero.
It's something out of
so it's just like when Cody Mork came out of North Dakota State as well. They went to the Tampa Bay and he had the missing front teeth. Like people just kind of harp onto these unusual characteristics. But I think with Dunker, I think he's probably going to kick inside to guard. I think he can be a very good guard. I think he's in a group. I've actually got a few names written down here. I've got, let me have a look. I've got seven tackles that I think are going to kick inside to guard, and he's one of them. He's probably someone who's going to go off the board in the second round. Once again, as much as you can want us to draft a bit of a cult hero like him, I just don't think he's in consideration for us at all. I think we're taking a guard in round 2. Yeah, lots to like. I think he could be a really good guard. He's certainly got some good characteristics. He's powerful. Iowa's been a bit of an O-line factory. Normally, offensive linemen from Iowa translate pretty well. But yeah, I don't. For the Patriots, I'm just not sure this is a pick that I'd be making. But yeah, he's cool.
Totally agree. He's another guy that just seems to absolutely love football. When you watch his film, he's throwing people to the ground. He's throwing himself into people who are already on the ground. Like, he just seems to sort of have a love for contact. But I thought the same thing about him moving inside to guard. When I try and picture him in the future and what his NFL future looks like, it's not him being an outstanding offensive tackle, it's him in locker rooms ripping his shirt open, smashing beer cans together. That's sort of and being a great, well-loved teammate. Like, I think he is going to do that. I think he's going to be a great player. But as it's been mentioned, we're pretty set at the guard position, so it'll be a pass. It'll
be very welcomed at TD Garden watching hockey and basketball is all I'll say.
Indeed.
on that. Right, let's go have a quick rundown then, because of some players that we've got our eyes set on them a little bit further down the draft board. There's an offensive tackle and a guard that's caught my eye as of late, but obviously the real main one that Nick will bring up Nick's favorite one, because this is the guy he wants, who should fall to us, is Alijah World, the offensive tackle out of Oregon. 3'18", 6'8". Good height, very good height at 6'8". And he ran a 40 of 5.4, which is a little bit on the slow side, but he gets a tackle off. We didn't see a 10-yard split. We didn't see a shuttle cone drill. We didn't see anything to that.
The reason for that is because he tore his ACL in January, so he didn't do any testing at the combine.
Right. Okay. Then so this is a development. Okay. This is the tackle that Nick said it was a developmental. Basically, he sits behind someone. He is a left tackle. Yes, he is a stash because he tore his ACL in the college football playoffs. He's massive. He's highly athletic. Moves incredibly well for his size. Heavy hands. Great at moving laterally. He can pull very well for a guy of his size. He's typical of your upright big tackle, a bit like Ursary was last year in terms of that upright blocking style. Obviously he is raw in terms of the technical aspect of his game, and he hasn't got a great deal of knee bend, but that's not uncommon when it comes to these really tall tackles. But yeah, Nick is right in what he says, in the sense of, if he isn't coming off an ACL, he's a second round pick, 100%. He's in the same range of Lomu, Ian Atchor, potentially Blake Miller. He's in that range of second round tackles. But the fact that he tore his ACL in January and we're only in March, and that's really going to limit him in terms of being able to play this season, particularly a guy of that size as well. So I don't think you're going to see him as a rookie. I think he's going to end up going somewhere. Again, San Francisco might be an option for him. He's going to be going to a team that doesn't have an immediate need at left tackle, that can groom him and develop him. And the hope is that he can go on to become a starting left tackle. And I think there's a good chance he can do that. He is talented, although be a bit raw, but I do think he'd be worth a pickup in the fourth round if he gets there. I think he's just a bit unfortunate about that injury because it's really dinged his draft stock, but he's a good player. Yeah, brings a basketball background that manifests in his body control and balance. Displays an understanding of angles, leverages that compensates for occasions when he's beaten by superior athleticism or technique. And he shows good mental processing to recognize and pick up stunts and delayed blitzes, rarely appearing confused by defensive schemes or late developing pressure. Rob, your turn now. Pick a player. Who do you think is a sleeper pick the New England could go for?
Okay. I'll give you because I like Alijah World as well as somebody, in that, fourth round range. He's perfect candidate. We were talking about someone sitting under Moses for a year, and with him being out, it seems perfect. I think that I'm looking at guys that are going to go in roughly the third round. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kieran, when I give you a name here, but a couple of people that I like are Austin Barber out of Florida and Drew Shelton out of Penn State. Not particularly not players that are going to blow you away. They both play left tackle, so I guess ideally you would want somebody who's been at right tackle, but you would hope that they could sort of make that shift over, particularly under the tutelage of Morgan Moses. But they're both guys who I've seen, enough on tape that I think that, with time, with development, they could be a sort of, decent starter over on the right-hand side. And really, for me, when I look at our offensive line, for the next 3 years, at least 3 out of the 5 positions should be set. Will Campbell's got 3 years plus a 5th-year extension left on his rookie deal. Jared Wilson's got 3 years left on his rookie deal. Alijah Vera-Tucker just signed a 3-year deal in free agency. Michael Onwenu, I think, is going into the last year of his contract, but you would hope that there might be an opportunity to keep him around. So if you have 4 out of the 5 positions set and you're pretty happy with the production that you're going to get out of those spots, then I don't feel like, I mean, yeah, of course you always want, the best player possible at every position. But if you're getting above average production, hopefully out of those 4 guys, then you can kind of not stick anyone over at right tackle, but you can have a sort of average starter over at right tackle if the rest of the 4 guys are all pretty strong. And so I feel like we could add somebody, whether it's 3rd, 4th round, whether it's Isaiah Ward who sits for a year and then comes in, or whether it's one of these guys who could come in and then do a job. Austin Barber, yeah, I like the tape. He started 25 games in college, so a little bit less experience. And to be fair, the same thing for Drew Shelton, only 24 games experience. So, sitting for a year would probably be beneficial for the both of them. But I like both of those guys in terms of the tape and what they could potentially grow into. I wouldn't, necessarily feel 100% comfortable with them starting on day one, but they're both sort of developmental options, from what I've seen.
He's a bit undersized. He's got an undersized frame with below average play strength. Drew Shelton has. His feet stop on contact during dry blocks, which isn't great. Turns his hips early in pass sets. Gears ground way too easy against power base edge rushers. Converts speed to ball. Run blocking has been inconsistent across his career. Lagged behind his past pro. And he's slow to pick up twisted stunt game between the tackle and end spots. This is a developmental guy, and I think he's going in day 3. And I found his player comparison, and it's not a very good one because we have this guy on our roster already. If you could guess who it is, Caden Wallace.
Right. Okay.
So.
On Austin Barber, I have him in that category of tackle to guard conversions. Right. So I have Lomu, Tiernan from Northwestern, Bunker, Parker from Duke, Davis from Illinois, Barber, and then Cage Casey from Boise State, all as tackle to guard conversions. I'm not sure I'd be too interested in taking one of them because although we could use some interior depth, I'm not necessarily overly high on any of them as potential options for us. So that's the kind of the range I'm at with them. I think I would be intrigued by taking a stab on Markel Bell out of Miami just because he's a 6'9" left tackle who
behemoth.
He had an insane combine, by the way. The guy's 40 time was ridiculous for a guy who's 6'9" and 340 pounds or whatever. Anyone that's not seen it, just watch Markel Bell's combine. It was ridiculous.
5.36, and he had a 1.84 in the split, which is in the orange. Yeah. So it's above average.
Yeah. So it was. He was great. Obviously, he has that size, that length. He has the comp with his hands was like a bear trap vice grip in terms of his hands. He plays like a typical 6'9" tackle in terms of being very upright, not a great run blocker. You wouldn't want to necessarily leave him on an island, and you certainly don't want him in a zone scheme where he's going to have to get out in space and and play as a puller. But I think in a power scheme or whatever, I think he could be a fine swing tackle. I have him developmental swing tackle or jumbo tackle option in the right scheme. That's kind of where I view him. I have him in the kind of 3rd, 4th round range. So he'd be someone that might intrigue me. But again, he's kind of on my polarizing list with Caden Proctor because not every team is going to love a 6'9" offensive tackle that has obviously some development. Obviously Isaiah World is my main sleeper tackle, if you like. But I'll give you a guard that I really like on day 3, who I've got about a 4th round grade on. I think you could slide him in as a backup to Michael Onwenu, and that's Jalen Farmer from Kentucky. I think he's got really good physical traits. He got the ideal size, the ideal frame and length to play guard in the NFL. He's pretty athletic, not elite athleticism, but pretty good athletically. He's a really, really good run blocker, and he has a real solid anchor and real good core body strength. He's just missing in terms of his technique with his hands. He is, again, a bit upright, so he doesn't, that kind of limits his leverage. And also, in comparison to other players in this sort of range, he's only ever played right guard. He's not got the flexibility to play center or left guard like some of the other guys have. So I think if you're looking for someone who could be a right guard specific backup to Mike Onwenu, I really do like Jalen Farmer from Kentucky. I think he ticks all the physical boxes, but needs time to develop and season a little bit. I've got a 4th round grade on him, but I think, someone like we saw Layden Robinson was taken as a 4th round guard a couple of years ago. That didn't necessarily pan out, but he's someone worth taking a stab at, especially as we have 2 4th round picks. So that's my kind of interior sleeper, if you like, for the guard position. I've got a couple more centers that I like, but I just don't see them being of interest to us with that position already filled.
Only Jake, but the best center on there is probably someone like, I don't know, Jake Slaughter.
I've got Connor Lew from Auburn as the best. Once again, another player coming off a torn ACL. Nick also had Lew as his number 1 center, but I think Lew, Slaughter, and Hecht are all going to be early day starters in the NFL. They've all got the right skill set and measurables. Centers are quite, I want to say, easy to find, but it's a gap that you can plug relatively easily. So I feel like all 3 of them are going to come into the NFL and start pretty early on. But then there's Burton from Kentucky and Brailsford from Alabama, who I quite like as day 3 centers that could develop into starters in the future as well.
So I want to look at just quickly look at Jalen Farmer's measurables. His 40 time was 4.93, which is really good. He benched 37, which is really, really good. Broad jump 108. His 10-yard split was 1.74, so very good. Arm length 34 and 1/4 inches, so really good. Hands 9 inch and a quarter, a little bit on the small size there. And for the first time I've seen on this list, he's got a span measurable. 82 and 1/8 wingspan. I'm probably saying that what he has. So he's quite a lengthy guy. So that's good to know. His actual player comparison for what I've got is like Tyler Cooper, maybe Trevor Keegan, maybe.
Can't say I know too much, but I remember Trevor Keegan coming out of
I remember Trevor. Of course, I know Trevor Keegan because I'm a Wolverine, aren't I? So I should know the guy.
Yeah. He's a good developmental guard to pick up in those mid rounds. You're taking dart throws at that stage, and I think he certainly from the physical perspective, he ticks a lot of boxes. So if you can develop him and refine him technically, I think he could be a decent backup guard at worst. Could develop into a starter. But like I said, he's not going to slide over and play left guard. He's not going to kick and play emergency center. Like, he is a right guard only. That's the only position he's played. So he would literally be an understudy to Onwenu.
Yeah, he would be. He would be. So not looking at centers then, if we're brutally honest, Connor Lew, Jake Slaughter, Logan Jones out of Iowa, Sam Hecht, Parker Brailsford out of Alabama, although he's on the short side, 6'2".
I like Brailsford. He's one of my sleeper centers. But yeah, he's going to need to get bigger and stronger. But I think as a day 3 center, who doesn't have any experience of playing guard either, so he's a center only prospect. He's going to be a backup development center, but I think he's got some traits to like.
Yeah, Pat Coogan, 3'11", 6'5", around a 5.20. Bryce Forster from out of the Kansas City Jayhawks, 3'10", 6'5", 5.45. He ran the 40 in. So, yeah, it looks like we've got some good measurables on the centers there. So if we're not talking too much on centers, but that is one position New England are certainly not going to go for, I don't believe. So...
No, I mean, if we do draft a center, which I'm not expecting us to do, it would probably mean that the team views Ben Brown as perhaps a backup guard, if anything. But I don't think that's the case. I would anticipate that Jared Wilson's going to start at center, and Brown is the primary center backup. they might sign a center as an undrafted free agent or whatever for a bit of camp competition. But yeah, I don't think center is going to be a position that we look at.
Okay. We always do this at the end of the show. Obviously, we're pick 31, but if we had a tackle or guard on the board, who are we taking? So, Kieran.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious after what I was saying earlier. I think that the best tackle for what we require and has the best chance of playing well early on if we need him to is Blake Miller from Clemson. So I'll go with Blake Miller.
Blake Miller from Clemson. Okay. Rob?
Shall I try and do something different and provide a little bit of
Go on then.
variety? I'll go with, since I was talking him up earlier and we mentioned that he might slide, Caden Proctor. I'll go with him.
Okay, you took my pick, so we're not even.
Right.
We're not going any different. But no, he was my pick at 31 originally to start with, and now it's changed to a certain receiver. I just love big offensive tackle guys. Trent Brown, when he was with us during Brady's days, was just simply impossible to get around. Simply impossible. So, but
can I just mention as well, these aren't going to be in consideration for us, but just to finish off the guard position, 3 names we've not mentioned yet are Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon, Chase Bezontis from Texas A&M, and Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech. I think all 3 of them are going to be starting NFL guards.
Yeah, they will be. They all will be. Where they're going to fall, we'll see. There's a lot of positions to be filled on the line for most teams, so you could safely say. I think one thing is a certain Leone, the left guard out of Penn State, is going to be the first interior offensive lineman to go off the board. That guy's a stud.
Personally, I wouldn't take. I don't think another guard should go in round 1. I know there's been a lot of mocks having Pregnon in round 1. For me, I've got Bezontis as my second interior offensive lineman ahead of him. I think Bezontis, Pregnon, Rutledge are all day 2 guys. But I think all of them are going to start pretty early in their career because I think they're all good enough to be capable NFL starters. But I just don't think there's enough upside with like Pregnon as like a 6th-year senior to justify taking him in round 1.
No. Yeah. So I think this class is going to be a bit. It's good. It's good for what it is. New England are not in a rush to get a guard. I think we will pick up a guard somewhere in the draft, but I don't think it's going to be, a huge dire need, shall we say? But we'll have to see.
Think so, yeah.
But we'll have to see. So we've gone through receiver, we've gone through edge rushers, and we've now gone through the lineman. This coming Saturday, when we do our next show, it will be all about the tight ends, and we love a good tight end. So that'll be someone to look forward to. Can we get Kenyon Sadiq? Are we getting Eli Stowers? Are we going to get Max Clare from Ohio State? Who knows? Come and join us on Saturday, 9 p.m. UK time, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific for that show. Also, but before that, on Friday night, we have got a very special guest on. We've got Joe Kochaya coming on from Pat's LFG. Is it Pat's LFG podcast? Let me just look at this phone quickly. LFG Pat's podcast over in the States. He'll be coming on for an hour. That'll be at 8 p.m. Friday, UK time. So that'll be a very, very good show to have a chat with him, talking about how the Pats are doing and what he thinks is going to happen in the draft and free agency. He is banging the drum of trying to get hold of AJ Brown and so on. But his co-host is basically trying to say no, he wants to go after and get a receiver. So a little bit of so it's going to be a good show. Going to be a good show on Fridays. Make sure you tune us out for that. And obviously, we'll have the tight end show on Saturday. So a big couple of days coming up for us on the podcast. Thank you to Kieran. Thank you to Rob. Thank you to everyone who's been watching. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. Smash the like button on the way out. Gronk's fight the subscribe button. Tell all your friends. Follow us on social media platforms. Make sure you follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple as well. And we will be back on Friday for the big show with the Pat's LFG podcast. Good night. God bless. Go Patriots.